And I think a lot of my experience is that farming wouldn't really be possible, wouldn't really be taking place. They play a very central role in the whole agricultural enterprise. And of course, in the conversion, I think yesterday Dr. Narayan Hegde was talking about the whole systems approach. We were talking yesterday afternoon, from production to consumption, from the farm to the fork. And of course, again, women play a very important role in converting whatever production we have into consumption, into feeding of children. I think there is enough research now, including from MSSRF, previous projects, LANSA, and so on, that actually there may be enough food production, but unless women have the time to convert that food, to collect the water, to cook that food, and to feed the young child, the child undernutrition will continue. So I think time use has been shown as a big issue, that lack of women's time, in fact, has been a contributory factor to poor nutrition, apart from the fact of production itself. So I think there are several very important issues that we really need to think, if you're moving towards sustainable development, of equality in all its terms. And when we use the term gender equality, I would just like to say that it's not just about men and women, but I think the term gender, in a way, for us is a shortcut for looking at different kinds of inequalities, what we call as intersecting inequalities. So it could be caste, how caste and gender interact, or how class and gender interact. And on today's case, being the day of the indigenous people, also ethnicity and gender interact in order to sort of double or triple marginalization. So it's not just because there are many well-off women, well-provided women also. So we can't say that all women are worse off than all men, because there are poor men as well. But we need to look at this very nuanced intersecting identities of who is left behind, who is marginalized, and how can that issue be addressed. Sangeeta pointed out, so I just wanted to say a few words on tribal women, though I'm not sure that, in this panel we are necessarily going to be focusing on indigenous women or on tribal women. But I think, it is symbolic in a way that we have the new President of India, who is a Santhal woman from Odisha. But sometimes I still have very mixed feelings about it, because I think it's a great privilege for a woman from a Santhal community, marginalized community, to have reached the stature of the President of India. But at the same time, we find, when we look at the situation of tribal people in India and tribal women in India, and this is more an exception. There hasn't really been the kind of effort or emphasis in terms of providing them equal opportunities. And I just wanted to mention a very small anecdote. I have been working in Jharkhand, which is, and with the Santhals actually, from the last 30 years. It was also my PhD field area. And the young woman who was my research assistant, a graduate, actually over the last 20, 30 years, we have been meeting regularly. She has been doing well, but she didn't get a job. And now she has been forced to migrate to work in a factory in Himachal Pradesh. So if you look at the state of Santhals, that they are even graduates and educated women amongst the Santhals, actually are not finding an employment suitable to their status or to their education or to their location, and are having to join the ranks of poorly paid migrant workers living in hostels, doing double shifts, and so on. So I think it is a serious issue that we really need to think about structural change. How are we going to change? The symbolism is good, but I hope this will be an opportunity to actually make some serious effort to change the conditions, to provide the enabling environment for tribal women, particularly in our country. Today I was very happy to read in the newspaper that actually somebody has said, Abhay Bang, that we should have a health mission for tribals, the National Tribal Health Mission, using this opportunity of indigenous. I think, and a lot of MSSRF work has demonstrated that our tribal populations in India live in agrobiodiversity rich areas, very biodiverse areas, whether it is Kolli Hills, whether it is Koraput, whether it is Wayanad. Why is it, I think we need to ask the question, that they still do worst in all Indian statistics in terms of education, in terms of health, in terms of the type of employment they are able to get. I think this is and of course nutrition, and that is a big puzzle, that they have so much of richness around them in terms of biodiversity. Why is their dietary diversity so poor? Why are they so nutritionally underprivileged. So I think these are some of the questions probably just to set the scene. And I think the last thing probably which we will hear from our speakers, because all of them coming from very interesting interventions, the Kudumbashri program of Kerala, Nikita's the fisheries kinds of interventions. And I think the one thing that ultimately can bring change, which we need to reflect on, is how do we change sort of institutional bargaining power at a more collective level. So when we talk about individual women's empowerment, which is embedded within the SDGs on gender equality and women's empowerment, but we really need to think about collective strength, collective bargaining, and institutional development. How do we build these strong institutions? I think Kudumbashri is an excellent case which has helped to build institutions of women and given them all the necessary linkages in order to be able to express their voice and this thing. Of course, all these have challenges because gender relations and gender equality is about power. Ultimately, it is about renegotiating power relations, and therefore there will always be conflict and there will always be resistance. But how do we try and take this forward? So I just wanted to frame it a little bit. I won't speak much more, but we have four very interesting speakers in this session. I would request all the speakers to restrict yourself to 10 minutes, at most 12 minutes. I will give a signal after 10 minutes because I would really like on this concluding day to provide space for little more discussion from people and questions from the floor and your views from the floor. So after the initial inputs that you give, we could have a bit of a panel discussion and then have some open questions. So the first speaker for this session is Dr. Nikita Gopal, and she is a principal scientist at the ICAR Central Institute of Fisheries Technology, Kochi, Kerala. And for several years, she has been actively engaged in gender research in fisheries and aquaculture, working on various parts of the value chain, seafood processing, small-scale aquaculture, seaweed farming, and so on. She supports the ICSF in their capacity building. ICSF is the network, the global network, international collective of small-scale fishers in their capacity building initiatives. And also, some of the big global studies, like the Illuminating Hidden Harvest study, which was taken up by Stanford University, World Fish, and others. She was a part of that. She's a founding member and chair of the Gender in Aquaculture and Fisheries section of the Asian Fisheries Society, which actually has a very interesting annual conference, usually in Bangkok, I think. And she has also been awarded the AFS Gold Medal in 2022. So she's a current editor of the Society's journal Fisheries Technology and vice chair of the Asian Fisheries Social Science Research Network. So over to you, Nikita. Look forward to hearing your comments. And please try to, after 10 minutes, I'll give you a signal. Thank you so much. We can't hear you, Nikita. Are you muted or can you unmute yourself? I did say, could you unmute yourself? We are not able to hear you, Dr. Gopal. Can you unmute? Online.
Mic problem.
Same. He's saying some button press. Dr. Gopal, we'll try and sort out your mic problem, and in the meantime, maybe he says that she has been unmuted, she has a mic problem. Now, next speaker is Kupata. Should I ask the next speaker to speak, or she's?
Hear me now? I think I had to be allowed to unmute myself. That was the issue, I guess. Thank you very much, Professor Rao, for the kind introduction. Good morning to everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank the Foundation for the kind invitation and also an opportunity for giving me an opportunity to make a presentation at this very important conference. We can't be talking about gender equality at a more opportune time than now, because it is recognized today as a critical dimension for all-round development to happen, as Professor Rao pinned in the beginning. Just because we can't leave half the world behind if we really want to progress. Before I share the two experiences that I thought I would like to briefly present, say a few words about the Gender in Aquaculture and Fisheries section of the Asian Fisheries Society, which began as a very informal group of mainly academics working in different disciplines of fisheries, but we all had a common interest in advancing gender in the sector. And through about 2 decades of very modest achievements, we got formalized in 2017. And as Professor Rao mentioned, we host a global conference every 3 years. And this time it is in Kochi, India in November. And I extend a warm welcome to all of you to attend that. The common interest stemmed from the fact that, just as in several other spheres of engagement that we see, women in fisheries and aquaculture also never really got their due, despite being half the workforce, especially if you look at the post-harvest sector, that is processing, pre-processing, marketing. Almost 60 to 70% of people involved in these sectors are women. So, and they also contribute, as we found in the Illuminating Hidden Harvest study, as well as some of the studies that we did in India, especially in inland fisheries, that they contribute a lot to fish production as well. And this production really never gets reflected in the official statistics that comes out from the government sources. And our stand, the GAFI's position is that society and the environment will benefit if women are empowered, and it can't be done by a few agencies. It must involve all stakeholders as we go along, and that's exactly what Professor Rao mentioned in the opening remarks. Coming to the experiences that I thought I would share in what could be thought of as small pathways to gender equality in the sector. The first one is ICSF Small Scale Fisheries and the Women in Fisheries platform. ICSF, as we all know, is the international collective in support of fish workers. It works towards establishing a gender-just, self-reliant, sustainable fisheries, particularly in the small-scale artisanal sector. And this has played a very crucial role in development of the FAO voluntary guidelines for securing sustainable small-scale fisheries in the context of food security and poverty eradication, which is simply called SSF guidelines. So they're not just, they didn't work just to evolve the guideline, but they're working very seriously in implementing these guidelines, basically by building the capacities at the grassroots level among fishermen and women who are not being just made aware of the guidelines, but also being exposed to various national and global policies and schemes that will actually allow them to secure these rights. As we know, the SSF guidelines was based basically on a human rights approach, and gender equality is a major cross-cutting theme in all the other themes. So efforts on capacity building on these small-scale guidelines has been going on from 2016 onwards. And it was in 2019 that the women felt that a separate platform to take up issues that they face is required. This was basically because women themselves felt that even fisheries national organizations, bodies, were not taking up the issues of women and giving it the importance it deserved, because they were concerned more with the larger male concerns in fisheries rather than the issues that women faced. Even apparently very simple issues like lack of toilets in markets are often left unaddressed. In April this year, when the women came together for another workshop in Chennai, a platform for women in fisheries was sort of semi-formalized. I won't say it's completely formalized, it was semi-formalized, and a few of its members were selected to represent all the women on the platform, and the statement of issues and their suggestions were actually released. This platform is just a very small beginning. It has to evolve further, and several practical and organizational and implementation dimensions have to be sort of sorted out. But this is, I think, a very important first step that has been taken to advocate the issues of women in fisheries as separately from what is perceived as the larger issues in the sector. Because as I mentioned, the women face several women-only issues that are sort of swept under the carpet when broader issues in fisheries are discussed. And the second example or second experience that I wish to share is on the development of a cooperative plan of action on decent work and thriving businesses for women in fisheries. This sort of evolved as an output of a webinar that we conducted in November last year, involving several agencies, which was interestingly termed Women Work in Fisheries Too. The goal of developing this plan of action was to contribute to greater regional understanding across stakeholder groups on the key labor challenges that women face in the sector, and to actually support regional advancements for gender just, equitable, and inclusive labor conditions. I think that was where we thought the first issues that can be addressed actually occur. And there were key objectives, 6 key objectives to provide strategic direction to this particular plan of action on how it should be taken forward. It had actually focused on key target audiences. It covered all the roles, like not just productive, but also reproductive roles, which are very, very important. And it took into consideration gender-based division of work at household levels. And it included often overlooked and vulnerable groups like young people, elderly people, and indigenous groups. And it emphasized R&D required to support gender equality, and also saw the gender dimensions of larger issues in fisheries, like the IUU issue, or the climate change and other shocks in fisheries, which actually affects all these aspects. This plan actually has been grouped into 10 articles, which have been grouped into 3 clusters. Cluster A, which comprised major domains of work in fisheries, like small-scale fisheries or the industrial sector, or their reproductive and caregiving responsibilities, and also looked at women in organized labor in fisheries, like professionals, researchers, who are also part of the sector. And Cluster B actually addressed the needs of groups of women and girls, which are frequently overlooked, like, as I mentioned, young children, or the elderly, or indigenous women. And Cluster C actually provided the fundamental measures for building that solid platform for action, which includes collecting the evidence required for collective action and for addressing labor disruptions from shocks, like we saw during the pandemic, which was sort of global, but also that we see frequently in coastal fisheries, like the impact of cyclones and typhoons, etc. So each article actually began with a short description which situated the issue, and further it had a broad outcome, a larger outcome that we were aiming at. That is, for instance, if it's a small-scale fisheries, we thought that the larger outcome should be greater formal recognition of women's labor in this particular sector, as it is not being recognized so much as it should be. And to reach these larger outcomes, we had interim outcomes and activities that actually could make the outcomes possible. So that is how the whole collective plan of action has been worked out. And it has been linked to major SDGs, which is very, very important, and also the partnering organizations, which could actually make this happen, has been identified. This common collective plan of action that was developed, it was an outcome of inputs from several agencies and individuals, and this has now been released, and it has been actively disseminated by the GAPES so that people are aware, and this can be a sort of a direction in how things can be done. These are, I think, the two examples are very small but significant steps that can be added to all the other steps that are being taken regionally and globally to achieve the larger goal of gender equality in the sector. And this can only be based on evidence on the inequalities that exist, and also on the long-term benefits that equality will bring to society. And thus we need good practices to be documented as proof for this, and there is also a continuing need for greater advocacy and finally a convergence of all these efforts. So in short, these were the two examples that I wanted to share, which could be possible ways for looking at how gender equality can be achieved in the fisheries and aquaculture sector. All these materials are available on both the websites which are mentioned here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gopal. I think that was really very interesting, and I think you've stuck to time and conveyed your point very, very effectively through your two examples. And I'm sure there are certain lessons and processes that you have followed which can be taken up in the discussion. And I think also it's interesting about the scale at which you spoke, right from the global to the national to the local. So I think that's also a very interesting theme to be picked up. Thank you. So our second speaker for today is Ms. Sindhu, who started her career as a teacher in Edakundam Government School, Kottayam. Later, she served as the district coordinator for the Kerala State Remote Sensing and Environment Center. And in 2008, she was appointed as the district program coordinator in Kerala Mahila Samakhya Society of Ministry of Human Resource Development. And from there, she served actually in the Attapadi Comprehensive Tribal and PVTG Development Project from 2015 to 21. And currently, she's the state program manager for the Kudumbashri mission on poverty alleviation. So she's had lots of experience at the field level in very difficult conditions as well. So over to you, Sindhu, for your experiences.
Okay, thank you, madam. Good morning to all. I want to share about that Kudumbashri. It is just formal thing that it is formed in the year 1998 and registered under Charitable Societies Act. It had its universal coverage in 2003. Currently, we have that of 3 lakhs of NNGs with 45 lakhs of members. We have 3-tier system. Everyone knows that that neighborhood group, it is called as NHG, and area development societies. That neighborhood groups are federated into the ward level, and it is termed as that area development societies. And we have that panchayat level federation, that is community development societies. We have that 5 domains of that program interventions, that is organization strengthening and capacity building, that strengthening of these institutions, institutions of energy, then CDS, ADS, that also happened in this domain, and social empowerment, economic empowerment, and women empowerment. It is another domains we are looking into. And we have that centrally sponsored schemes of DAY NRLM, DAY NULM, PMAY, MKSP, and DDGKY projects. Under that organization strengthening and capacity building, we are focusing on the 3-tier institution strengthening of women in different themes and their functions as management, skill, and all this are happening in this sector. That PRI, CBO, and convergence for the plant preparation, panchayat support, preparation in panchayat, then supporting the energies to prepare their annual action plan, and capacity building of all functionaries, developing model CDS, and focusing on livelihood, social institutions, and capacity building. Then strengthening the activities of special energies like that, tribal energies, coastal energies, then transgender and PWD energies are also there. That is happening. Then strengthening of auxiliary group. These are the new group who are the youth. Young women are in this auxiliary group, and we are also focusing on the livelihood aspect of this youth in auxiliary group. Then social empowerment programs are also going on. Some of the social empowerment projects, that Ashraya, Bud School, Balasabha, and tribal special projects are there. Then gender development activities are also going in a specialized manner. That is, we are now doing the gender development activities in three perspectives, that is three sectors, that is supportive programs and also that prevention program and also transformative programs are also going under this gender development activities. For supportive programs, Nikita Gender Help Desk is in 14 districts. There are 15 Nikita Gender Help Desk is there, 14 in each district and 1 in Attapadi special area, in a tribal area. Then gender resource centers are there. It is situated in LSGI level. It is the management of these gender resource centers are doing by the CDS in convergence with the panchayat, and gender self-learning program is also going on with the help of these CDS, these three-tier institutions. Then also gender clubs in schools and colleges are also under part of work. Then theme-based program, that is separate themes of that art, culture, and that literature, then theatre, and it is for giving space for women in all sectors. That is also going on. Then economic empowerment programs. That economic empowerment programs is mainly that microfinance, it is their livelihood, that farm and non-farm livelihoods are there. Then marketing. We are focusing on the farm livelihood aspect. It is the progress over these years is 2006 that lease land farming comes, and 2009 collective farming, then 2010 to 11 the JLG concept that arises, and that MKSB project, that is Mahila Kisan Sashakti and Pariyojana project, that concept came at the year of 2011. From 2011 onwards, we are mainly focusing on the farm sector, that agriculture activities and then animal husbandry from under this MKSP project. That 2014, they started supporting structures, that biopharmacy, FFC, that farmers facilitation centers, and we focused on it. And 2017, MKSP value chain product and established marketing linkages. 2018-19, there are specific agri-business ventures, processing units, farmer producer organizations, then inclusion of latest farm technologies. That also that we started in 2018-19. When we are talking about the collective farming, it is the main aim of this collective farming to increase the visibility of women in agriculture. Women have no recognition in the field of agriculture. All the major activities of the activities are doing by the women, but there were no recognition of women as women agriculturists. So to increase that visibility of women agriculture, women in agriculture, so we started this collective farming in order to support each woman. So, and also have to reduce that rigid in agriculture activities and enhance the sustainable livelihood opportunity. Now there were 3.3 lakhs of women in agriculture. That is, women agriculturists are here in the field. we have that of joint liability groups, JLGs. That is a group of women, 5 to 10 members from each groups, energy group or different energy groups. Then they are undertaking farming on leased land or in owned land. There is our women, there is a less that owned land. There is so they are taking leased land and they are cultivating that agricultural products. Then the CDS, these groups, that joint liability groups, are registered with the CDS for the supporting for fund and some other assistance from, they are getting other assistance from these CDS. That in joint liability groups, elected members are there, elected leaders are there for management purpose and maintaining records and mainstreaming their group into other sectors and all this purpose. Elected leaders are there. They are supporting these JLGs. Then special JLGs and Jiva in tribal areas under MKSP project. That is, special JLGs are a concept that in tribal areas for enhancing their agriculture activity and all the related activities, agriculture and related activities in tribal areas. We have that of Jiva volunteers for they are the trainers. They are the trainers of the agricultural master trainers. There are two sets of trainers are there, master trainers and then trainers that Jiva volunteers. Jiva volunteers are Jiva trainers who trained the master trainers. They are from the tribal community and they have ethnic knowledge and they have the natural farming technologies. They know the natural farming techniques and all these things. Then farming practices. This leased land farming is mainly confined to the commercial crops. Then paddy, banana, tubers and vegetables, millets and pulses. Mainly in tribal areas, millets and pulses are focusing on. In Attapadi, that millets and pulses are very much cultivated by these JLG groups, and in Wayanad, paddy cultivation is going on, and it is mainly concentrating on paddy cultivation. Then traditional eco-friendly rain-fed agriculture is also producing safe to eat commodity. So in nutritional purpose, we are focusing on not only for commercial purpose, it is also for the consumption purpose. So for nutritional security in tribal areas, we are very much giving importance to the farming and consumption purpose of consumption of these products, their own products to the people. So natural farming in tribal area is also focusing. Then leased land farming peculiarities. For leased land arrangements ensure a system of a better supply position for agricultural land. And we have less owned land, and therefore we are utilizing these leased land arrangements for agricultural production. So identification of fallow lands and cultivation adding up to the eco-restruction and agrarian economy. And women are reformed socially and financially through togetherness from the state of being landless poor. Then they have the state of being, they had that of state of being landless poor, but they are not, now they are not in the state of having landless poor. They have an identity, of women farmer, and they are cultivating products from this leased land, and that is one thing we realized from this leased land farming Then helped in increasing farm size, pooled labor, improved credit access, then enhanced bargaining power and profit by bringing scalable economies. That is another thing. Yeah. Then the supporting system for the women farmers, we are community resource persons for helping these farmers, and that is farm and facilitation centers are also there, bio-pharmacies are also there, then policy interventions. They are intervening the demands of, according to the demands of the farmers, that policy interventions are making, and that impact assessment and analysis is also going on, then creation of data and digital inventory is also the support from the from Kudumbashree. We have that barefoot agri consultants that I already told about, that Jiva and master farmers are there. They are the people from the community, and they are supporting the farmers for enhancing their productivity and increasing their knowledge. We have that tool banks, that FFC, farmers facilitation centers are there, that providing tool and that giving assistance through trained master farmers, and also providing organic manure and pesticides from biopharmacies. There's a women entrepreneurs. There is a farm livelihood ventures are now formed from one single women to single women agriculturists to the women entrepreneurs. That is the main shift of these women. That is, we put the demand-based enterprises, and also scale-up based enterprises, then technology-based enterprises are there, then special initiatives are there, policy convergence, that is also there. Then social cause interventions, social cause enterprises are also here, which are run by the women from JLG groups. Then demand-based is banana cultivation, Jaivika nursery, and scale-up based, that is the list of these demand-based, scale-up based technological interventions. Then animal husbandry is another main part of our that intervention. That is, there are also 5 JG like structures are there, and they are doing the same activity with that of this joint venture.
You can move to the conclusions.
Yeah. Other initiatives. Yeah, just. Yeah. The impact, while we are saying about the impact of this collective farming, is women got confidence in doing agricultural activities as women farmers. That is one of that. Then togetherness leads the women in reducing drudgery, then enhancement in production and income, better price realization, and sensitization and empowerment of members, and self-sufficiency. Then redefining gender roles. That is one main part of this collective that farming. Then resolving issues of members mutually. That is happening in our joint livelihood groups, and that is. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sindhu. I think that was such an enlightening and detailed presentation on the process of organizing the Kudumbashree groups, but also the importance of support, of hand-holding. You can't just leave the women to become empowered. Empowerment is a process, and therefore Kerala government, of course, has, through various schemes, as she demonstrated over a long period of time, being supporting and hand-holding these women in order to give them an identity as farmers. So thank you very much for your intervention, and I'm sorry I had to cut you short a little bit, but I'm sure there'll be, I think we got the point, and I think there'll be some questions and comments from the field. So I'd like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Ak Panda, who's working as principal scientist at the ICAR Central Institute for Women in Agriculture, SIVA, in Bhubaneswar. And he's currently leading the priority MNE, Monitoring and Evaluation Cell of the Institute. And his research areas include gender and nutrition, but he's also involved in various research projects on promoting gender equity through family poultry, women entrepreneurship development through livestock and fishery, alleviating malnutrition through nutrition-sensitive agriculture, and so on. He is currently a postdoctoral fellow at the Oregon State University in the US and has published more than 220 research articles. Over to you, Dr. Panda, and I hope you can also restrict yourself to 10 to 12 minutes.
Thank you. So good morning to all of you, esteemed chair, coordinators, and dear participants. If you think about women in agriculture, do you think about women? And probably our gender role starts here. So ICAR Central Institute for Women in Agriculture, Bhubaneswar, is the institute of its own kind, exclusively devoted for gender research in agriculture. And since last 25 years, this institute is doing research on issues affecting women and their opportunities in agriculture. And based on the participatory action research, it is finding solutions and giving advocacy from time to time. Yeah. So let us see. If you see our total scenario in India, 65% is the primary source of women livelihood. Then agriculture, if you see the backbone of agricultural force, it is 43% women, and women actually they are major producer of food, but they lag behind in ownership of land and access to income. And if you see, since our family is patriarchal, there is a bigger issue on land ownership. Only in India, 13.87% of the women, they have land on their own name. And the women faces also bigger challenges, particularly from socio-economic fronts. Then, this is the reason that we consider gender as a women empowerment. And the basic questions comes to your mind, do men and women enjoy the same opportunities? Particularly, the problem is imbalance and unequal status of women and unequal opportunities and personal freedom. And this leads to gender gap. And if you see the gender gap in agriculture, it is again unequal access to land and water, unequal access to it is productive resources, particularly if you see extension service, critical input, and technology and information. That is today the extension service actually reached to only 20%. Then if you see the critical input again, it is less than 30%, and particularly another unequal access in the area of credit facilities, market, and the most important angle is your decision making. So why it is important to be here for gender in agriculture? Just if you know, it will be very astonishing that in India every day around 1800 farmers are living agriculture. So if you calculate in a year, we are adding another country like Bhutan to India where people are not interested in agriculture. So there is a feminization of agriculture. Then another thing, agriculture, this youth, particularly there is a decrease in the interest of youth to coming into agriculture. Probably agriculture is not a noble profession. Then again, the male-centric technology. Another thing is, another important point is malnutrition. If you educate women and bring gender equity and gender equality, then you are going to increase the production by 4%, and in the other way, you are going to reduce the malnutrition by 17%. So this is another area, but one of the major problem is decreasing land holding. In India, you know, 85% of the farmers are small and marginal farmers having less than 1 to 2 hectares of land, and this is a very big problem to sustainability. And this could be the reason that there is a need for gender mainstreaming for reducing gender gap in agriculture. Now, looking at the various angles of empowerment, in what angle we should empower them, it is again coming certain areas like policy and reforms, access to control over resources. Another area that is drudgery, it is a big problem. Then capacity building, that is another area is market linkage. Now, this is one of the most important area in the year to come. We have to link market with the women. Then household food and nutrition security, again, malnutrition, we are talking a lot about it. Then again, environmental safety, then technology generation, transfer, and adoption. Now, ICAR Central Institute for Women in Agriculture is a government institute under, that is your Government of India. Our vision is to act as a lead center for gender research and serve as a catalyst for gender mainstreaming and women empowerment in agriculture. And we do research on gender issues in agriculture. I will show details. Our objective is to undertake and assess agriculture technologies, program and policies, and to refine them under gender perspective. Then to create gender disaggregated database. Then we also characterize drudgery and occupational health hazard. Then we also develop gender sensitive models, then gender resilient and sustainable agriculture models. Then we also do capacity building. And our major thrust area of research is technology assessment and refinement, livelihood and socio-economic policy, drudgery and vulnerability, then natural resource management, food, nutrition, security, health, then your grassroots institution, extension system, and capacity building. So these are the certain area of gender mainstreaming, that is farming system research, innovation in rural aquaculture, gender sensitive extension, then family nutrition, women entrepreneurship. Then we have also a gender knowledge system in agriculture, I will show that one, and development of farm women leaders. This is not possible by us, so we make linkages with various other organizations. We have linkage with both national organizations and international organizations. We have also, students are also coming to do their masters and PhD programs in our institute. So our approach for environment is actually in three angles, mainly it is social, and again, this is economic empowerment. So training regarding gender awareness, then drudgery, then confidence building, and leadership. And particularly in the angle of economic empowerment, this is access to market, then credit, income, and access to service and technologies. So we integrate gender to reach, benefit, and empower. That is, include women in program activities, increase women's well-being, and strengthen their ability. Now, there is a need now whether we should go for gender accommodative approach or gender transformative approach. Again, it is the need of the hour. Based on the situation, we can go for gender accommodative approach, but time has come. Now we should think about gender transformative approach. Now, this is one of the pathways for women empowerment. Here, whatever inequality is there in excess, that is there, and finally the outcomes will be that is gender equality, again livelihood promotion, then leadership qualities, and environmental outcomes. Then we have a gender-based, this is actually web-based portal. If you go to our website, you will get all the information related to gender knowledge system. And also, this is just your state-wise, the information is available. Then we have also developed certain technologies, methodologies in the process. Major of our technology goes for drudgery reduction. We have also developed gender-sensitive models. We have also done a lot of capacity building programs. Last 4 or 5 years, we have done more than 30,000. And we also registering farmer producer organization, which is now we are moving now from SSG now to cluster and now to FPO. Now, this is one of our model, gender sensitive extension model for entrepreneurship development. It starts from the women farmers to the entrepreneurs. Then we have also worked on gender sensitive model for doubling farmers' income, where we integrate gender, then yield enhancement and cost reduction. Then this is another system that is that is nutrition sensitive model, where we integrate gender with nutrition. Then we have also developed, we have also got certain patents, and also we have developed a value-added product from fish, that is fish legs, and we got trade license for that. Then recently, in the month of November, we launched a program that is called Nutrition Smart Village to strengthen the Poshan vision, and we have adopted 75 villages across the country that is located in 12 states, and in Odisha it is 10, so it is 75. And we also do women empowerment through establishment of, particularly, we had launched a program that is called Prerana, where we have established also custom hiring centers. Then this is one of the technology that we have commercialized, particularly maize dehusker and sellers. We have also certain other drudgery reducing tools and equipments. Finally, just because it was told us to tell how Odisha government is also doing women empowerment, so I highlight 1 or 2 points here. I don't want to go, this is the women workforce in Odisha. The scenario in Odisha is actually 18.9% of the Odisha gross state domestic product, and it's from agriculture, and 49% employment. And in Odisha, government has recognized one district, one product, and also giving local value chain approach. So in Odisha, if you tell about women empowerment, it goes to Mission Shakti. There is a ministry here, and this is one woman that is Mrs. Sujata Karthikeyan, she is leading. And under this, if you see, as on 31st March 2021, there is 6.02 SSGs. So there is approach is to strengthen the SSG, and they are involving 70 lakhs women. And if you astonish, the loan amount was around, they have given 4,190 crores. And even if one other way of promotion they give one, even if they are giving zero interest, they give interest-free credit to the SHGs. And this is the operation. They operate at district level, block level, and even if Gram Panchayat level. And this is the actually the objective, empowering women through promotion of women self-help groups. And the major area of focus, that is institutionalization of women self-help groups, capacity building, market linkage, livelihood promotion, quality assessment, and then policy formation and advocacy. And almost 70 lakhs women have been organized into 6 lakhs groups. And empowering women through, again, we have a network called, that is Odisha Rural Development Marketing Society. Whatever products that is available, these women can go and actually they sell their product through policy melas. And they have also in Bhubaneswar, it is organized Sisra Mela. So wherever there is there, they are marketing their products through ORMAS. Then another one is Mahila Vikas Samavay Nigam, and another is Mukhyamantri Mahila, that is Sasaktikaran Yojana, like Prime Minister, we have another program. So this is the way. Now finally I can tell that if you want to look at women empowerment, then we have not only think only one angle, we have to think many angles. Like you have to strengthen women's land right, you have to promote women agri-entrepreneurship, you have to facilitate value chain, you have to also go for climate change and risk mitigation, we have to provide better infrastructure, we have to become vocal for local. Now this is the new India. So that is called, we have to become vocal for local. So if you want to bring gender equity in agriculture, then all these things is necessary as of today. So I will end my presentation. For Atmanirbhar Bharat, if you want to become self-dependent, that is, you have to take women along with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Panda, for that very good presentation. And I think you've raised some important issues. I think very similar to the Kudumbashri, you have pointed out from the example of Odisha that you need to work, you know, in terms with support, you need to work at different institutional levels. And also, I think importantly, that multi-dimensional effort has to be made. It's not only enough to work on land rights or only on technology or only on markets, but we need to look after or pay attention to the different dimensions of women's lives, whether it is nutrition, whether it is markets, whether it is credit linkages, drudgery reduction, and so on. And I think you ended with a very nice slogan of vocal for local. I think this has also become kind of the global thing, that we need to look at the global good practices and principles, but really contextualize them in terms of the local context, rather than just implementing models from one place to the other. How do we adapt? How do we contextualize in line with the local conditions? That's really important. Okay, so I think we've been okay with time. I would like to invite our last speaker, Dr. Rangalakshmi, who is director of the JRD Tata Eco Technology Center here at MSSRF, and she has over 25 years experience working on a range of issues. Though she started off with a doctorate in agriculture, she went then into a post-graduation in anthropology and focuses on sustainable agriculture, climate change adaptation, food security, participatory research, and for a long time actually was the lead for gender and grassroots institutions within MSSRF. So over to you, Ranga, for some of the experiences, and like the others, if you can restrict to 10 or 12 minutes, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nitya, for the great introduction, and good morning, everyone. Yeah, this is regarding our experiences in one of the projects from Odisha, how the gender technology is building the resilience, adopting different strategies, and what are the challenges we are facing while implementing such programs in the field. So as we all know, the Paris Agreement under UNFCCC, the global goals reiterate the gender responsive approaches for adaptation and capacity building as a kind of two important activities to bring gender equality. And in that, the main activities they are promoting is adoption and sustainability of practices under a climate smart agriculture approach. Depending upon the context, the CSAs vary. And here the important risk is already there is a gender gap existing, which is affecting women as well as the agriculture production, the nutrition and other several dimensions. But in future also such innovations and developments will further reinforce existing inequalities if we are not attending at this current phase. Here identification of innovations, especially in climate smart agriculture, that have high potential to build the women's agency and empowerment, that we need to bring in here. Here there are several other social drivers are also coming up, like migration or feminization of agriculture labor force. In that context, we need to see how the CSA approach can support in bringing gender equality. So here the context is basically from Ganjam district, one of the coastal area, where more than 70% of farmers are small farmers. Paddy, vegetable, livestock, mushroom, agroforestry are the key production systems. Groundwater and rainfed cultivation both go hand in hand. And the key climate risks are seasonal drought, frequent cyclones and low depressions. And at that time it is a kind of a short-term submergence, that is a seasonal flooding again. Then terminal moisture stress while cultivating the main crops in both the seasons. And in this there are three major components. One is participatory technology demonstration in the field to build their knowledge and skills to improve the practice or adoption of smart technologies or adaptation technologies. Then harnessing the strength of digital tools, how those technologies like use of voicemails or video-based learning, those have the capacity to reinforce the learning, especially knowledge and skill to practice some of the technologies with the support of partners working in their locality, especially KVKs and State Agriculture University, in this case OUAT. Then building producer collectives to promote the social learning, because in the small farmers context, the learning agriculture extension services basically through the farmer to farmer learning, and how do we facilitate that process and also achieve the economy of scale in production and marketing among the smallholders. So the gender analysis took part in the roles, then division of labor, access and control over resources for adopting these technologies, then participation in the decision making both at the household and community level. And the key gender gaps we came across is the locally led adaptation technologies were missing in that context, and the extension services were not reaching the farmers. And here especially the context of pedagogy approach, especially working with most of the semi-literate farmers, especially women farmers, it is very limited, and reduced access to resources and decision making power to implement the technologies which we are facilitating as a kind of an adaptation technologies. Then Department of Agriculture and KVKs, they are the major source of agriculture advisories, and again their capacity to shift to the adaptation technologies are also very minimum, and gap in access to ICTs. And these are all some of the technologies we facilitated. One is that how do we promote the system approach within the field itself, integrated farming systems using different enterprises at that local level, having backward and forward linkages, then crop diversification in the system. Then the third one is intensification, how the agriculture productivity can be enhanced. And fourth aspect is reducing the drudgery by introducing some of the farm machinery which are suitable to that local context. And this is one example how the whole value chain, the different strategies or different technologies from the pre-production to marketing phase, the activities has been enabled through the system. Here two things happened. When we started the project, it was a kind of an horizontal scaling strategies, and when we go, progressed up, it was started in 2019. Now we are in the almost third year we completed, and we are in the fourth year. Demonstration of the CSA technologies for farmer to farmer learning, especially farmer field school and farmer field days. Then enhancing the knowledge and skill using different digital tools to reiterate the learning and facilitate the process of taking up the technology to the next level, building a cadre of champion farmers for horizontal learning and networks among them. Then at the vertical level, in the third year, we started working with OEAT as well as KVK to take up the technologies which we facilitated and the demonstration to the next level. Here the processes and methods play a major role for the KVKs to take it up to the scale. These are all some of the field schools, field days at the end of the farmer field school. Then at the end, we assess the empowerment in different indicators we used for them to, for women as well as the men, how the learning process facilitated in the whole interventions, and what was the key impact which they are practicing it to improve the agriculture production in that local context. So the major thing which we observed was from the survey, that is 70 to 80% of the women actively involved in agriculture, marketing, production as well as the decision making processes. Here mostly vegetables are kind of an important farming system, and women are involving in agriculture operations, especially the varietal selection, because here the choices are made available to them. Then the important aspect is seed treatment and plant health management through plant clinics facilitated. And in the kind of harvesting and the post-harvest operations, they have introduced the technologies for storage that provided them to have a kind of an aggregation approach as well as delayed marketing in this context. And the most important part is the reduced violence against women and receiving good recognition from the society. That part they highlighted as part of the impact study. Then financial transaction, women now coming into a kind of a decision making process, otherwise earlier they were not involved in that domain. Then consultation both for agriculture and domestic activities, mobility, because that is the most important for them. They recognize that as a kind of an important change they are looking for. Then when we talk about the strategies which are working at that local level, the domain we have identified, there are 6 domains. One is skills and knowledge, and in that what worked, the transformative actions. Here is to model, women evolve as a kind of a model to break the barriers at the local level. Otherwise, their mobility and interaction with outsiders were very limited. They provide just the physical labor at the farming operations. Otherwise, their role is within that household itself. And the second one is access to a control over resources and services. Here, enabling different input services and interaction with other farmers. Using the village knowledge centers as a kind of a platform to come together. Here again, the access to seeds, credit and other inputs have been facilitated in expanding the linkages with institutions which are working nearby. And the third one is the workload. Workload here basically introducing farm machinery, simple farm machinery which provide a kind of a support for them to complete the task within the short time. Then the collective labor approach, because that practice have been in that area for a while, but it was degraded. But now due to this improved farmer to farmer network, this is again coming up now. And also the custom hiring center have been established at the local level to enable access to farm machinery. And the fourth one is voice and representation, strengthening the farmer collectives. These farmers were brought into a kind of an institutional framework, and they have been working on the technology facilitation process, and as well as marketing aspects they are involved. And access to market and the local employment opportunities were also enabled in that whole process by bringing up new activities to intensify the farming system operations, especially though mushroom, apiculture, agroforestry, those have been in practice, but it was in very low scale. But in this process, it got intensified and creating more opportunities for them. And decision making in household and access to productive resources. Here also again, how the changes which we are bringing in can be facilitated as a kind of a sustainable one through behavioral changes, both from men as well as the women part, and at the household other members who are involved in that activities. This is one just example of how champion farmers are identified as a kind of an as a kind of an lead, as a to break the stereotype, or as a kind of an local leaders, and they are in turn mobilizing other farmers, expanding their networks, sharing their knowledge, and motivating other members also to come forward to adopt some of the interventions. And here is the framework. We started with addressing the gender equity. We could able to make a little change through the interventions of technology, training, bringing them together, enabling access to market. Now we are in the phase of women's empowerment. That visible changes we could able to see both at the social inclusion as well as the empowerment aspects. Some of the social norms are addressed during that process, but moving towards gender transformative approaches still takes more time and need some more partners to come together and carry forward the activities. So finally, to conclude, the bring change in women's participation is a sequential process, need time, and changing manifestation of the gendered vulnerabilities to climate change. Again, this needs to be contextualized and identified the key risks and promote activities which are necessary for them. Then multiple strategies are necessary, as previous speakers also emphasized this, to make transformative and sustainable changes at the household as well as the societal levels to bring changes in the gender relations. And the third one is the collective actions, which needs to be facilitated among small farmers for social learning as well as the group learning processes to address some of the climatic risk and share some of the activities which are relevant to them to take the activities in the production as well as the post-harvest operations. So with this, I'll end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rangalakshmi. I think we've had a very rich set of presentations, 4 presentations, very complementary, in fact, to each other, arguing for a long-term strategy for gender empowerment and attaining the goals of gender equality, a systems approach that just a single intervention at a time may not work, multiple domains from skills to resources to workloads, and I think you also mentioned attention to other issues such as violence, which are not necessarily in the productive domain, but all our speakers have also mentioned social empowerment as a very critical part of this process. So thank you very much for staying on time. I would now like to open up for questions or comments. We'll take 3 comments or questions at a time, and then I will allow the speakers to respond. If you can, please mention who your question is directed to, and please try and make them brief so that we can accommodate as many people as possible. Thank you. Ban.
Thank you so much. That was a very enlightening panel. This is to any or all of the experts. I am really curious as to, related to, especially on the social empowerment side, women are, they have to work in the context of their villages and their households and communities. If and what are the specific types of successful male sensitization strategies and activities that you have undergone? And I would like to hear your experience about that.
Thank you. Very important. I'll hold, please note that question to all the panelists. Yes, Amit.
It's really a very enlightening thing. But as usual, I'm really left wondering that where are the men in this whole thing? You began very nicely. Is it a repetition of a kind of a female chauvinism? The second question I have, and that's a direct question, that are there any time use studies of collective farming efforts? And this leads me to another question, that are we increasing the time poverty of women in all these empowerment efforts? A specific question here comes in. Then in what framework do we look at the word empowerment? Breaking this down, unless we recognize the intrinsic, inherent empowerment functions of women, which is reflected in the day-to-day struggles, individually and collectively, the empowerment approaches that we have are market-oriented and patriarchal. Maybe all of you could comment on this.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Mathur. Maybe I'll take her.
Very exciting presentations and discussion here. I just wanted to supplement the question that we just had by asking if we can extend some of the models and mechanisms that we are talking about in terms of the social and economic empowerment of women, also to cover other distinctions of ethnicity, caste, etc. that you mentioned. Can it be done by default, or would we require a totally new set of instrumentalities there?
Thank you. Madhura?
So one is a brief comment, again, I think linking up to what Amit said in some way, that in this discussion of empowerment, it is not the panelists, but in general literature, sometimes you're isolating it from certain basic issues like, say, education. Now, we want education for all boys and all girls, 100%. I mean, that's it. And then, of course, we may need special attention to be paid to girls to ensure they're in science, for example. So, sometimes I think that when we talk about women who are not literate, of course, they have, that doesn't mean, they don't have forms of knowledge, but let's not forget that we should try to make them literate. That should be number one step as well. So, somewhere there is a common universal, rights that we are fighting for. And when we talk about women's empowerment, let's not, forget that. Or maybe it's just assumed by everybody and we are not talking about it. Second thing is, I didn't hear much about credit. But, of course, Kudumbashree and all his... But I have, again, a real problem with microcredit. In that, we have the sort of literature, and the Reserve Bank of India, I should say, and Government of India and many other governments now think that women is only microcredit. So women need access to Kisan credit. Why are we saying they need special forms of credit? It is that they have to be made part of Kisan credit card, made part of the mainstream at some stage. Of course, it's a process. So, I mean, I'm not putting down any of the work here, but I'm just saying that sometimes when we present, we're so excited about the special thing we have done for women that we forget how is it to be integrated as one development program at some stage. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just, are the panelists happy? Are you noting down the questions? So can I take two, because there's many questions, so maybe I will take 2 or 3 more questions and then come back to you. Is that all right? So I think Mr. Giri first and then Jairam. Yes, Dr. Giri.
Yes, thank you. Now, many of you are pointing to initiatives on the ground, but it is also linked to larger policy questions, which you have hinted it a little bit, but it is helpful to tease out further. For example, Dr. Swaminathan, when he was the member of the parliament, Rajya Sabha, he had taken a women's farmers bill. And he was telling me that didn't go through. So we need to meditate on what is the state of a framework like this. Secondly, now Sindhu, in your very, inspiring presentation on the collective farming, but then this collective farming, is it also including men? And yesterday we had a presentation on collective farming and what is the kind of linkage between them. And finally, about time, what Professor Rao began with, time use. Now this time use, just to open up, including the discourse of empowerment, is that the time use is not just structural. There is also a question of a new relationship with temporality. Now, how do we, in the context of structural time poverty, create new kinds of time realization? And the women's groups, all collective groups, for example, yoga, for example. Now, yoga is a new experience of time where it is not constrained by a so-called quantitative time. Similarly, empowerment, Professor Madhura's critique of empowerment also needs to be accompanied by a foundational critique of power in empowerment model, and if that can be related to other quality of life, you know. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you've raised a bigger philosophical issue, which I will leave it to panelists whether they would like to respond or not. Dr. Jayaraman.
I'll come very rapidly back to the ground and very mundane stuff. With regard to this thing about time poverty, there was, I think, if my memory serves me right, this whole question of providing creches for working women, you know, collective forms of childcare, building on village traditions where possible, you know, that there was a lot of focus. And somehow this local institutional forms whereby certain functions that women have to carry out for the household can be collectivized or shared. This somehow does not seem to be focused in the agenda. And maybe I'm mistaken about the current state of affairs, but greater focus on this would, I think, really help to solve this problem. Otherwise, we are leaving it somehow to the individual woman and her household to cope with it, and the relationships between them are only through credit or, you know, in those forms. So I just want to say that, but at the same time to thank the panel for, I think, a very wonderful presentation, a very enriching and enlightening set of presentations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, I think, for all the questions. I will first give the panelists a chance.
One online question.
Huh?
Online.
One online question, please.
The question is, what are great point on credit systems applicable to women? It would relate to women's land ownership as well, access to Kisan credit. Thank you.
Who is that? Do you know? You can read the name also.
This M. Jacob.
Okay. Thank you so much for that question. So maybe we'll go in the same order. I think, Nikita, if you would like to start with responses, pick whatever questions you would like to respond to.
Thank you, Professor Rob. There were several, I think about 8 or 9 questions and comments. There was one on whether these models can cover other, you know, distinctions of ethnicity and caste, etc. I think several of us in our presentations also mentioned that even when Dr. Angalakshmi was presenting in the last, that it should be contextualized. There is no single, you know, model that fits into everything. And we know when we do social science research that everything can be contextualized and adapted. So there is no single model that fits into everything. And that comment on whether this whole thing, we are excluding the men and it's sort of a female chauvinism, I think men are not excluded. Professor Rao mentioned in the opening remarks that not all women are equal and not all men are equal to some women and not all men are equal. So there is, when we say gender, we also include, you know, we speak more on women, especially when I'm talking from my sectoral point of view from fisheries. We're speaking more of women because when we talk of small scale fisheries, especially, the women are more disadvantaged than the men are. It's not that the men are having all the advantages that other men in other sectors have, but distinctly the women are more disadvantaged. That's why we are focusing more on their issues. It's not that men, we can't talk of gender, we can't talk of women if we exclude the men, because it's all again situated in the same community, in the same societies, and we have to deal with all that. It is the power relations within households, outside it, and it's all inclusive, it's holistic. So I think that is one point. And I agree with the point on credit that Dr. Madhura made, that yes, I am also against this whole focus on microcredit. That sort of puts women into a particular box and from which they're not able to come out. Why can't we talk of entrepreneurship at a larger level? That I think some of it came in Dr. Panda's presentation, but I think we're still talking of the scale, the upscaling of women's enterprise. I think that's not happening. I think we should get out of this box of microcredit, and that is what is happening. If you look at primary cooperative societies in the fisheries sector, when you talk of credit to women, it's all again microcredit. It's for small enterprises that they can undertake, and there are no major credit schemes that women can avail. And that's also because of the recognition as fishers. When we talk of recognition, the cards that they get, the fisher cards that they get, most of the women are categorized as allied workers and not as fishers. Only when they are categorized as fishers, they get a fisher card, can they access the benefits that the men are accessing, which includes credit. So that is what we are talking of. We are actually advocating that there should be a fish worker or a fisher card that is uniform across the whole value chain, because they are also contributing equally, if not more, to the sector. So that was one point. And I think we are not talking of adding to the work that women have. I think that is something that is very important when you're talking of empowerment solutions or strategies. It's not that they're adding to already existing burden of work that they have. That is a distinct trap that we may get into when we are talking of new strategies. We have to take into consideration whether there are other support systems, like they say, a point was made on whether we can have a local institutional forms where the work that women do for caregiving, for instance, can be taken up by some local institutional form. So I think these some of the points. I think.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Nikita. I think that was really useful. So Sindhu, would you like to take some of the questions? Especially relating to Kudumbashri, I think, and collective farming and male sensitization.
Yeah, thank you. Regarding that of men inclusion, I think we are in a society having a different type of individuals, having men, women, transgender, and different set of people. While talking about that of equity, we have to set up a frame of reference. Already we have a frame of reference of constitutional rights. So why we are focusing on women, it is the denial of constitutional right, it is more to women, some vulnerable people, some set of individuals. So for realizing the fact that for getting equity, that equity in the society, we have to sensitize all the people, each individual. We are setting up of that. We realized that after that gender self-learning process, we did it in among women in the energy groups. We realized that they knows the rights and rights. They realized the rights, but when they went to their home, the rights is then itself the rights is also denied, because the awareness to the other people people in the home itself is not really doing no. That is why we started gender sensitization program to men also. That is for the youth. We started gender clubs in schools and colleges for both. It is not for women only. It is for the entire students in the school and in the colleges, and also for youth clubs, and that is open to the society. That is for the youth clubs, that political parties, and inside that the different societies that we started to do it, because the demand from the women is that we already realized that we have this set of rights and entitlements and rights, all these things, but the opposite, and who are supporting with them and who are living with us, who are not aware of, they are not, this is because of the awareness, this is, they are giving more importance to the social norms, that of institutional rights. That is the constitutional rights. because they are giving more importance to the social norms rather than that of constitutional rights. That is because this is happening. It is not about that of awareness. That is one thing I want to share in the first.
Quickly you can do.
Yeah. The next thing about the collective farming, we are doing in the tribal sector also. In tribal sector there is a different view that only women are doing this farming together. The men also are involving in the farming because they are mutually doing the farming. We are providing assistance, that financial assistance to the women group, but in the family itself they are doing mutually, they are doing the agricultural activities, that is going on. So there is no, that collective farming refers not only, but in other areas we did not do it in that way. It is in tribal area, it is okay. So I think it is.
Thank you so much for that clarification and also for the training in schools and colleges. Very useful. Dr. Panda, maybe you can just take 2 minutes.
Yeah, this is first thing is regarding empowerment. 4 things are very urgent and necessary for anybody to empower. First thing is, as ma'am told, it is education. Second is health. Third is economics, and fourth is policy. These 4 things are very important. Now, coming to the gender empowerment does not mean that only bringing women into the same platform where men has. So it is like bringing both wherever men are lagging behind, particularly in Northeast, it is about men, not more about women. Now, another thing is regarding time realization study. Yeah, our institute has done some research, and we have taken up a project, and I can share that one because one of our scientists is involved in that. We have taken up a project particularly doing research on that time realization study. Third thing is there is a need now to study the influence of microcredit, particularly on the livelihood of farm women. If you can take up that study, then we can detach them from microcredit. Whether microcredit system has benefited the farm women or it has not benefited the farm women. So there is a need now to, this is again why I think in this year, there is a need of the hour that we should do certain studies on the role of microcredit, particularly on the livelihood of the farm women. And there is a need now to move forward from your self-help group to more towards cluster and a bigger role. I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, with reference to the intersectionality. So in the field level, we used to take other social variables also into consideration, like caste, class, gender, even the age also a kind of demographic factors coming into. So those factors are taken care while we mobilize and organize the members into the community, and while we providing opportunities for demonstrations, training and other initiatives, they are part of it. Even in the collectives also certain representations they are giving and accordingly mobilizing the opportunities. And with regard to empowerment aspect, from agriculture point of view, we are approaching men and women. So starting with the technology, skill, knowledge, in the whatever existing cropping systems or enterprises they are engaged in. In that we are starting first, and slowly it is getting into other dimensions, like interacting with outsiders or having engagement with other institutions or negotiating with market traders. Likewise, it's slowly expanding, but the starting point is the technology as well as the new knowledge they are gaining in the whole process. And with reference to the credit, we have mixed views. We started with microcredit, and in that microcredit gives some space for women to get recognition at the household level. That happened first. But over a period of time, now the government policies have also changed. JLGs they have introduced. JLGs, it is not related to kind of a microcredit kind of thing, but still while making payment, it is the responsibility of women because she is the member. So in that context, necessarily if saving is associated, then it is much easier for her to overcome the challenges at the time of payment. That is one. And second, with reference to KCC, that is Kisan Credit Card, without the land ownership, it's very difficult to get the Kisan Credit Card. It took for us to more than 10 to 15 years for the women without the land to get the Kisan Credit Card. In some of our Tamil Nadu field sites, it's happening now. But the process is long, and the bank managers, they have to convince and they have to get confidence that the history of the particular member, how the repayment was, those things are related to getting the Kisan Credit Card. So without policy support, getting Kisan Credit Card for women, it's a little challenging one. It takes some time. And with reference to Giri's question, it is a kind of a longer thing. It is the social norms that needs to be addressed first at the local level. Women has to convince themselves to come forward and take it to the activities into the next level. So we start with local, then the enabling conditions from the policies, both at the district as well as the state level, may come forward to enable the changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the speakers and the questions and the responses. I don't think I have really time to summarize, but just one or two quick points which the speakers said I wanted to pick up. And I think which has come from all the responses, and Nikita had first said it, that really we have universal rights. Sindhu just said, but still women are left behind in many places, particularly farm women, fisher women, and so on. I think we need to really focus on research and documentation, collecting the evidence in a systematic way in areas to see what is beneficial, what is not, what can help women get those constitutional rights and gain an equal status rather than all the time keeping them separate. I think ultimately women are a part of society. They need to have the equal rights to society. But I think we have heard a very rich set of strategies that can be used in order to achieve this. I think policy, of course, is very critical. Somebody from the ground mentioned it. And I think, Nikita, when you mentioned about the fisher identity, actually, I would just like to say that the National Policy on Farmers, 2007, in its definition of farmers, actually included farmers, fishers, anybody involved in any kind of activity. So maybe one of the advocacy issues should be that some of those policies which are already in existence should really be put into practice in order to enable this process of moving towards gender equality. So thank you very much, everybody, and I hand over to Gopi.
Thank you, ma'am. We once again thanks to Chair and all other speakers to share their views. And I would like to request the Chair to hand over this conference webinar to speakers. Thank you.
So sorry, Nikita, I think you are missing this bag.
Dr. Nikita, we will send the e-souvenir soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gopi, and thanks to the chair and the panelists for having a very vibrant discussion. We'll now break for tea. We'll have a short tea break. Tea, as usual, is served in the pantry as well as in the courtyard for the other participants. And we think we should come back here at 12 noon for the final and plenary session. So please do make it possible to be on time for the last session. Thank you.